Welcome to Forum 360. Thank you for joining us on our global outlook with a local view. This is Leslie Unger, your host today. Every few years on Forum 360, we turn our attention to Israel. This country, slightly smaller than New Jersey, the only democracy in the Middle East, a country with no oil, but a country that has given us Waze, voicemail, instant messaging, the defibrillator, and the phone chip. You could divide life in Israel to before and after October 7th, 2023. Just as in many ways you can divide our life in the United States to before and after 9/11. Before October 7th, this country, established in 1948, was called the Silicon Valley of the Mediterranean, and third only to the United States and Canada in terms of number of companies listed on the NASDAQ. After October 7th, this country has been fighting for its life, literally and in the world of public opinion. Two Akronites, young leaders in our community, recently returned from a mission trip to Israel. Joining us today to hear about their trip and their perspectives are Amy Joy Stewart and Vicki Kolomensky. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for going,
Yes.
for coming back, and for coming here. I've gone to Israel since the late 80s. Every time I go, people ask me, why? Why would I go to this country that seems to always be at war? One time I went during the Intifada, it literally was at war. So let me start there. Why did you go at this time? Let me start with you, Amy.
Sure. The opportunity was great. Jewish Akron subsidized our trip, and so my thought, not that this was the only reason, but my thought was that this is a great opportunity to go at a reduced cost, to go with a group that I did not know at first, but that I knew of, and that I knew were basically the future of Judaism here in Akron, and to give back to that greater Jewish community. I am actually a convert, within the past 3 years, and I've really been embraced by this local community, and I just felt the need to give back to the global community.
Let me ask you, for
Sure.
anyone listening or watching that doesn't know what that means,
Sure.
so you say you are a recent convert. Can you tell us from your perspective, what does that mean?
Sure. I actually had to meet with a rabbi.
So you were born?
I was born Christian.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of people ask, did you turn away from Christianity, or how'd that happen? I do not feel that way. I feel like I turned toward Judaism and just embraced this thing that had been calling me since I was a teenager, really. And so I met with the rabbi. I learned, I studied, took a class, wrote several papers, which is why my conversion took as long as it did. It took about 2 years. Because I was stalled on the papers. And once that was done, I met with the rabbi and a group of my peers, basically, that were Jewish. They asked me a lot of questions about why and what I wanted, what I saw in my future. And that was that. That was basically the process.
Okay. Thank you. Let me ask you, why did you go, and why did you go at this time?
So I decided to go because, truthfully, as you said at the very beginning, there's really an Israel that exists before October 7th and after October 7th. And for me personally, October 7th was so devastating, so emotional, and my care for the Israeli people, the Jewish people, felt so profound, and I really wanted to go immediately, really, after October 7th. On October 8th, I would have gone on a plane and gone to visit and to, do whatever I could to bear witness, and to, it sounds like saccharine, but like provide any comfort or help that I could. It just felt so important. And we also discovered when we were there, as you said, so many people ask, like, why do you go? It seems to be perpetually at war. Israel is obviously at war right now. But we were met with such gratitude. People were so thankful to see us come from America to, to be of help, to just, also help the local economy. And so it just felt important on so many levels to show the support for the country.
Recently I purposely went to Munich to go to Dachau concentration camp. And when I came back and I would mention that, I was stunned by how many people would say, why? Why would you want to go? And I was like, why wouldn't you want to go?
Right.
But even why would you go to Israel, right?
Yeah.
So how did your families feel about saying bye, and you going? It's one thing for you to make that decision. How did your families feel?
My husband was very supportive. My husband's always very supportive of me. He actually had to take a week off of work because he works nights, and we have a 10-year-old, so he had to, stay with her overnight and get her to school. So he was very supportive. My father, who I don't know that he was real happy with my conversion at first. He's been good lately. Was jealous of me for going to Israel. Like he really was excited for me.
Great.
So, and I think the rest of my family was excited as well.
And your families?
So my family is really first of all, my husband, and he actually, I'm so fortunate he was able to come as well, and he was able to come because my in-laws were able to take our kids, and I think they were really supportive. I mean, they could also, sat around the dinner table with us for the past 18 months, and here are, so much of our conversation is about Israel and about, the outpouring of anti-Semitism afterwards, and just how much we care and are invested. So I think they were very supportive.
So let's flip that quickly. Whenever I've gone, the night before, I have high anxiety, saying my dogs, I'm never going to see you again.
Right.
And then I get there and I feel safer than I feel in the States, walking around somewhere. So tell us first, was this your first trip, and how safe did you feel while you were there?
It was my
overall?
first trip, and like you, I had a lot of anxiety, especially just because there was a current war. The ceasefire at that time was expired, and they were sort of in the middle of discussions as well. So there was some anxiety there, but once I got there, I mean, really,
Right.
honestly, I didn't feel fear at all. As a matter of fact, we went down to a kibbutz that was, what was it, like 700 yards away from Gaza.
Yeah.
We stood literally 700 yards away from Gaza looking out, and I still didn't feel unsafe. So it was fine. It was absolutely fine.
Right, you feel very safe when you're there. And any difference between how you felt about thinking about going and when you were actually there?
I mean, I was anxious a little bit. I think it's common relatively, but so no, we felt really safe there. There also are a lot of precautions. I think it's the Israeli government requires that you have like an armed guard with you, depending on where you're going on your itinerary. So we did have someone with us on different parts of the trip. And in general, we were very lucky to be there. Actually, it's sort of like a lull in the hostilities, and it felt, very safe, very normal. The markets were, bustling. People were on the beach in Tel Aviv.
It's a great beaches in Tel Aviv,
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Great beaches.
Yeah.
And you can find someone playing volleyball at any time.
At any
That's
time.
yeah, that's what it felt
Even
like.
at night,
Day
we
and
were
night.
walking
Yes.
at night, like 11 at night, and people were playing volleyball.
Yeah.
Well, the last time I was there, the Cavs were in the playoffs, and I got up and walked to the only sports bar in Jerusalem that had the playoffs at 3 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
And they were playing at 3 in the morning. Volleyball.
You're devoted.
On the
That's so
beach.
funny.
On the
Wow.
beach. On the beach, yes.
Wow.
Now, you land in Tel Aviv.
Tel
It has
Aviv,
the
yeah.
only airport in the entire country. So
Right.
people understand how small this country is. There is one airport. You land in Tel Aviv. Your mission had 3 focus areas. Let's look at the first one. Focus on bearing witness to what happened on October 7th. So what did you see or hear that was different either from what you heard in the States or what other people going at other times that are not bearing witness, that from what they would hear or see?
I mean, we heard a lot. The first 3 days really were about bearing witness, and even the whole trip was about it. But But really, we met with people from kibbutzim that were affected by it. We met with a survivor from the Nova Festival. Hearing their stories, I mean, I had heard them on the news, but hearing them face to face and being in the place where the stuff happened was just very powerful. I don't know that it was different than what I was expecting, because again, I'd heard the stories, but just to hear it firsthand and to want to shout it from the rooftops that this happened, like this horrible, horrible, horrible thing happened. And I will say, like, the Nova Music Festival for me was one of the most powerful places that I've ever been in my life.
And if you would just follow that up
Sure.
for listeners or viewers, because it was the most powerful,
Because it was a place where so many young people, 22, 23-year-olds, were going to just have a good time. Like, I have nieces that are in that age, and they go down to Country Fest down in Canal Fulton every year, and that was exactly what it was like. Somebody just came into Country Fest and started murdering people and doing horrible, horrible things to people, and just to think of that and to know that happened was just eye-opening and life-changing. And to hear the survivor talk about how it changed his life, and to hear his actually beautiful perspective on how thankful he is for his life. I mean, he told us to cherish every moment that we have and just spread love and kindness through the world, and that's really it. That's it.
That leads to your second focus, was the impact on Israel society and on Israelis. So you met with Israelis of different ages, different experiences, different closeness to October 7th and others. What did you learn?
So I would say, so the very first day that we were there, we went to Kibbutz Kfar Aza, which, as Amy was saying, is very right on the border, essentially. And for me personally, whenever I read about the kibbutzim, like just in terms of their ethos, this sort of, they're very liberal places, people who live like communally and have a big emphasis on agriculture, and they really know their neighbors, they grow up together. It's like this very sort of, and it is really from this like idealistic socialist place where it originates. And so I always was just very drawn to, like, I think I would live on a kibbutz, like, given the option. And so to go there, we were taken around by a daughter of the kibbutz, and so she grew up there, and she knew everyone, the hostages that have been released, the hostages that are still there. We saw their homes, and I mean, not only are these places, these sort of communal, they're like the peaceniks, right? That's one of the big tragedies of October 7th, is that the people that were right on the border were the people that were striving for peace so fervently, and then were murdered so sadistically. And so, to hear these people say, now, like, we don't really believe in peace with the Gazans. Like, if it were up to me, I would like to see a wall built in between. And it's very sobering, right, to hear it from the people themselves who really tried and who knew so many people personally in Gaza, and to hear it from them themselves. I think that's really sad and something that must be like reckoned with as we think about the future.
Joining us today are Amy Joy Stewart and Vicki Kolomensky to talk about their recent trip to Israel and their perspectives. There are traditional sites in Israel that, like, everyone that goes, goes to see, Masada, the Western Wall. Mm-hmm. So what of the traditional things did you get to do?
We went to the Western Wall, and we went on a tour of the tunnels underneath the Kotel, which was really fun.
Yes.
And we went to Har Herzl to, we saw the cemetery there, and other traditional things.
We did go on like almost like a sightseeing tour of the geopolitical border, which was
not a sightseeing
That's not a
tour.
sightseeing tour. I know, it's not. You just get to see all this stuff, but it was a very interesting historic.
We went to
like,
the Church of the Holy
historical-
Sepulchre
Oh, yeah, we did
in
do that.
Jerusalem, which was amazing and something a place I really wanted to go to.
Yeah.
We went to the Anu Museum in Tel Aviv.
That was actually a really great museum. It was all about like Judaism. It was the history of us, which was really interesting.
Yeah, it was an awesome museum.
Yeah, we did go to the Israel Museum as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
And we went to, I just had it on the tip of my tongue, I'm so sorry. We went to, what was the neighborhood that we went to that
Where?
with the windmill?
Oh, the Montefiore.
There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the first Jewish neighborhood built outside of, the old city.
So you got a lot in.
We did.
We did.
There
It
was a
was
lot.
dirt
Yeah.
packed.
A lot
Yeah.
in.
Yeah.
A lot in. Now, what would you say to people, especially it seems like young people in this country, that hold signs that say things like Free Hamas and, what would you say to them after your experience on the ground there? Because, sometimes I kid, but I'm not really kidding that, if you asked a protester to show me where Israel is on a map, I don't know that they could. Because just, I don't know how much understanding they have of the geopolitics or the history or, but what would you tell someone that was, if you're pro something else, it makes you kind of anti-Israel. What would you say to someone?
The conversations that I have with my husband, whenever we see Free Palestine or Free Hamas, the first question that always pops into our mouth is, from what? And I think that that's the question that I would ask. Free them from what? Like, what are we seeing that they need to be freed from? And I do understand, especially Palestinians who live in Gaza, they are under this regime and probably do need to be free from that. but I'm not so convinced, as they are that Israel needs to be the one that they're free from.
Now, your third focus was to
Wait,
volunteer.
can I answer that
Yes,
question?
yes.
She's got a lot of ideas.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's
So
a huge
what would
question.
you say? Yes, it is.
And I could go on, but I won't. And instead, what I'll say is that I'm still dealing with and I'm still processing and will process for the rest of my life is the world's response to October 7th. And it really was, I felt so completely blindsided and so completely devastated by it. And to see people that I know, people that I've been a progressive, I've been someone who has championed causes on the left, and to see, so many of these people who believe in so many, humanistic values, to then so quickly, it was incredible to, call Israel every terrible name in the book, but not just that, but to dehumanize Israelis. And I'm happy to have an intellectual conversation with anybody about all of this, but the people who live in Israel are people. They have dreams, they have brothers, they have sisters, they have sons. They're people, who are murdered in the most sadistic ways, and they deserve sympathy as human beings. And we really need to keep that in mind. I don't know how that got lost so quickly. It scares me very much. And so, I would just want to talk about the humanity, because I feel like that's been so lost.
And yes, it has. But a partial way that you kind of demonstrated humanity, your third focus was volunteering. And so that's a way of showing humanity. So what was volunteering like in this trip?
We helped to paint almost a children's center, like a kindergarten room at a kibbutz that had been housing IDF soldiers, and the rooms had gotten a little, they weren't looking so great. So we helped to paint. We went and picked grapefruit under the hot Israeli sun
We sure
one
did.
morning. It was
So
a
you got
very
to feel like you worked on a kibbutz.
yes,
Yes.
pretty much,
A
yes.
couple
And
days ago.
the farmer
Yes.
who owned the grapefruit farm, he was a soldier himself. So he had been away for many, many months, doing his reserve duty, and so needed help. And a lot of the Thai agricultural workers, left after October, the people that would be there normally to help. So things like that,
Yeah.
which just kind of goes to show how diverse Israel is. When
It
you just
really
said,
is.
Ty, that it's not just Israelis, right? It's not just Jews. It's
Absolutely.
very diverse.
It
Yeah.
is very diverse. One of the restaurants that we ate at was actually owned by a woman whose family had migrated from Egypt in the 80s.
Ethiopia.
Ethiopia. Thank you so much. There was another woman that we met that her family had come from Egypt. But we did get to hear her story, her family's story, and many of the people that we met were not Ashkenazi, typical,
Oh my gosh,
you know,
not at all.
Not at all. It was very diverse.
Yes. Now, you visited the kibbutz that was invaded by Hamas on October 7th. So can you just tell us briefly, what is it like almost 18 months later? What is it like at a kibbutz that was invaded on October 7th?
It's a ghost town. So it's people, so very few people, I think it maybe had 1,000 residents, you know, on October 7th. And now, you know, a scattering, if, you know, maybe, I can't say a number actually, but very few. It's mostly people that are coming. It's like there are bullet holes everywhere. There are roofs that are caved in. You know, doors have, you know, writing in Hebrew to connote like part of the IDF missions in the days after October 7th. It's not, they're completely in havoc still.
Yeah, it was very, very much a ghost town. I'm so sorry, and very much empty. I know the one kibbutz. We didn't actually visit the location of the kibbutz, but we did visit
Kfar Aza.
the people of the other kibbutz.
I
Yeah,
see,
we did visit one community, kibbutz community, where they had actually left their homes and moved into a building in Tel Aviv, or a group of buildings, so that they could stay together. And still, most of them have not returned to their homes. So it was definitely empty.
If there was one thing that you would want viewers and listeners that have never been to Israel and may know very little except for what they see on the news, kind of like as we said, an outsized amount of attention for such a small country, what would you like them to know about Israel? If there was one thing.
It's just a beautiful country. It really is. It's just a gorgeous country with a diverse cast of characters. You think that there's only two sides to a story, but there's not. It's you get the whole gamut there.
Right, you can get a bikini and you can get a very Orthodox
Right.
of any religion, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Walking in the same 3 feet down
Yeah.
the street.
Yeah.
And is there one thing that you would want people that didn't know that much about Israel to know from your trip?
I guess it's difficult. I just think it's just fantastically diverse. I think they'd feel so much more comfortable there than they might anticipate because, you know, it is very Western. It has a lot of, you know, restaurants and people of, you know, all different, you know, skin hues. And it's just a really lively, you know, place that people live life to the fullest.
In the couple minutes that we have remaining, I'm going to ask you for 2 or 3 word answers, okay? What surprised you most on this trip, whether you had been there before or not? What surprised you most?
Just how kind everybody really was and how appreciative people were. Sorry, there was more.
Okay. What surprised you most?
How stuck the people are still on October 7th.
What do you think would surprise someone else that was going on their first trip?
Say it again, please.
What would surprise someone that was going to Israel for the first time? What that surprised you, but what do you think would surprise someone that was going to Israel for the first time?
I think that, to Amy's point before, I mean, in America, I know it's 2 to 3 words, not going to happen, that we're so, you know, Ashkenazi Jews are the biggest cultural touch point for people, and it's just so completely, like, they're Jews from all over the Middle East, Jews from, you know, Russia, Dagestan, everywhere, you know, North Africa, and it's the diversity of people's experiences is just profound.
And one way the diversity comes out is in the food. That, you know, here we might just think it's all hummus, right? But favorite food?
Well, was
there
probably the falafel place.
Oh, it was really good.
It was really good.
Okay. And favorite food?
2 things. One is we went to an amazing vegetarian restaurant in Jerusalem called Pergamon that was like all the quality was incredible, and Iced Aroma. I love Iced Aroma. It's a really amazing coffee treat.
Okay. Now, in 1 or 2 words, What is one thing that you think that people get wrong about Israel? I know it's not
It's
fair.
a hard one.
I know it is.
It's
Is there one-
impossible, Leslie. One or two
Yeah,
words.
I know, it's so hard.
I totally get. So give me your favorite memory of this trip. Is there one favorite memory?
If we're talking
With
about
a
the things,
hostage family, with a
yeah, if we're talking about the things that we bore witness to,
Mm-hmm.
it was definitely meeting the survivor from the Nova Music Festival. But if it's the fun, the camaraderie, was Tel Aviv and Purim. We were there during Purim, which was super fun.
Okay. One memory.
One memory from this trip.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the granddaughter of Holocaust survivors, and so for me, it felt, especially after October 7th, really just being in Israel, this place where Jews could finally, be free, have self-determination, felt really profound. Just being in that place.
Unknown and uncertain. Amy Joy Stewart and Vicki Kolomensky joined us today to help us understand what life is like when you live with the unknown and the uncertain every day. In some ways, the Mideast is very complicated, and in other ways, it's not. The citizens of a democracy have the right to expect to wake up in the safety of their own home each day, attend a music concert, and go about their life without the fear of torture, death, or capture. It's not all that complicated. Thank you to two Akronites for going to Israel and for joining us today. I'm Leslie Unger, Forum 360. Thank you for joining us for a global outlook with a local view.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.